I've been a teacher. I've taught in public school, private school. I've taught vocational classes at Austin Community College, and I owned a small vocational school. I've been an account exec for an international company, and for the last 27 years I've had my own small business, so it gives me a really wide range of knowledge. My small business that I own is as an event planner and designer, and what I do in that is bring people together who have something that they want to accomplish, and everybody knows what they want to accomplish, but they never know how they want to get there. And that's sort of what I see Congress is doing. There's a lot of people that want to accomplish something, but nobody seems to know the path to get there. And what I'm used to doing is bringing people together, sitting down, finding that little core of what we want to get done, and then working baby steps till we find where we can't agree, and we say, okay, let's accomplish that. And so I think that gives me a nice advantage over most folks that haven't collaborated like that and worked with diverse people like I have. There's real concern about the safety net issues, Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. As you leave Bell County and Travis County, the population skews older, and Medicare is a very large issue. It's also an issue for the more rural areas because of their hospitals. They are heavily dependent on Medicaid and Medicare. The incumbent has voted to cut Medicaid innumerable times, and that will really devastate the rural and county hospitals. It'll hurt the urban hospitals too, but because they have so many more rooms, they're able to better offset those losses. The problem with that is the hospitals are not only one of the largest employers, they are, of course, their health care, but what happens whenever you end up cutting a large employer, it's not just the people that work there, but it's all the businesses. If you want to talk about trickle down, that's where trickle down comes in. It hurts everybody. If people lose their jobs, then they're not going to buy groceries, they're not going to be paying their mortgages, they're not going to be buying cars, they're not going to be doing all those things that people can do when they have a job. So I think that's very important. So protecting Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid are very important. I will work, you want to know solutions, I would like to see the salary cap on Social Security raised to $250,000. I think that's reasonable. Right now, people who are lower wage earners are paying really a much larger percentage of their income in taxes than those who are making a little more, and it seems a little more fair to share that amongst all of them. Medicaid, I wish that Texas would have expanded Medicaid. It would certainly have helped the hospitals here tremendously. That's not something I can force on them, but it might be something that we could look at an end way where perhaps a hospital district could apply directly to the federal government. I understand that with the president we have now, it's not going to be an easy 2 years, but what I think we need to do is to start laying groundwork and working together, and then hopefully we'll elect a little more reasonable president in 2020. Another issue here is jobs, concern about what happens whenever people, for example, in Killeen, get out of the military. Are they just going to leave the area? A lot of them have been here a while. They are invested in the area. They may have married somebody local. Be nice to be able to keep them here. And I would like to see more vocational training in our schools. Some of the districts have really robust programs. Gatesville has, I believe it's 11 different vocational programs, really high quality programs, and they've learned how to leverage dollars to get the money they need from the state so that they can build out those vocational programs. That's important because it helps kids get out of school and have a certificate to go right to work, and some of those jobs are really high paying. Welding, pays 6 figures, so that's not shabby coming out of high school. It also makes a difference whenever kids decide to go to 4-year college. Instead of flipping burgers somewhere, they could do meat cutting or welding or whatever part-time and use that money to pay for their schooling, so it helps them with that. But also we need to look at ways to bring more industry in here and clean industries. I'd like to see more renewable industry coming in here. We need help with internet. I think that if more people could have more access in the more rural areas with fast, high-speed internet, it would be helpful. In a lot of the towns, we only have one company to pick from. At our house, we could have DirecTV or we could have Spectrum. That's it. So it makes a difference if you've got a choice, because then there's a little more competition between them, and you can get a little faster broadband, maybe bring some businesses in to some of the areas that wouldn't have had them otherwise. If we can bring in plants that manufacture, say, wind turbines, solar panels, batteries, we really need to be training for the jobs of the future. I think focusing on fossil fuels like so many people are still trying to do. It's the way of the past, and it's not healthy for us. It's not healthy for our planet. And then let's see what my third would be. Immigration reform. Again, most people tend to think that immigration reform is more an urban issue, but it's really not. Up in Hamilton County, for example, they had a really tough time getting sheep sheared because they couldn't get the immigrants to come out. They were concerned. A lot of them are undocumented, and they were afraid to come out and work. Businesses depend on immigrant labor. And we need to have comprehensive immigration reform that has a robust workers program where they can come in, have a permit to come in and work, and if they can go back and forth, they'll maintain ties with their home countries. One of the sort of unintended consequences of tightening the border is people who got here, it was so expensive and so difficult, a lot of them stay because they're afraid if they go back home they won't be able to come back, so they end up staying here, putting roots down here. So opening the borders up will actually change a little bit of that immigration pattern. I believe, too, that our dreamers need that legalization, and their families. They've been here, they've been paying taxes. I've been reading lately about them deporting people who have truly done nothing bad. They came across the border bringing their children because they wanted a better life for their family. And I think that's how everybody's ancestors got here. They didn't come here because they were coming for, the pretty scenery. They were coming here because they wanted a better life. When my fifth great grandfather came from, he was in South Carolina, then to Louisiana, and then to Texas in the 1800s, he came because he wanted a new start. He had been a blacksmith. He had rheumatism really bad, couldn't work anymore, and he had debts. And he wanted a new start. So he and his grown children came to Texas and made a new start. He ended up fighting at the siege of the Alamo, went in his 70s. Because he loved this country so much, this state so much, and wanted it to be free. So I think whenever immigrants are denigrated as bad and harmful, it's not telling the true picture. The majority of immigrants are hardworking people who want a better life for themselves, or in the case of the kids, they're just trying to save their lives. The difference between me and my other candidates is that I've got a lot more experience. I am older than the rest of them, so obviously I would have more experience. But I think the difference is how long have you worked or how much have you done in your community. I've worked in my community in PTA from the time my daughter was in school through now. She's a junior in high school now. I've worked in my church. I've volunteered for all different types of community effects. If there was something that needed doing and I could do it, I would go do it. I didn't necessarily join the committee or whatever, but if I could help, I would go help. That makes a difference when you know about all the different organizations that work in a community. When someone, for example, I was at the Lake Travis group and they were talking about wanting to get in with their school board to see about what the sex education was and how they could get a good sex education class going. I said, well, you need to get on the School Health Advisory Council. I knew that because I had served on it at Dripping Springs for 2 years. I said, that's the group that recommends nutrition, they recommend sex ed, anything that has to do with student health is what the School Health Advisory Council does. Someone who hadn't been there probably wouldn't know that. So that is, what really differentiates me. I've been there, I've done that, and I'm ready to take that experience on to Congress. How will we motivate people to vote in the elections? Every meeting I go to, the crowds are bigger than they've ever been before. People are motivating themselves. I shouldn't say that. Perhaps it is the silver lining of this election is that people who have always, they say, oh, I've always voted. I was so sure Hillary was going to win. I didn't do anything else, but I voted. And now they're going like, holy cow. We're not seeing what we see at the federal level that we want to see. We want to see decency. We want to see people speaking to others with just basic human compassion. My daughter is Latina, and when they speak from the federal level about people with brown skin being rapists and murderers, and they're coming here to take your jobs and all this type of thing, that hurts my child. And I don't think it's what we want. I hear people saying, oh, he speaks from his heart. Well, there's something that I grew up with here that's called common courtesy. And it's like you can say, somebody says, is that clock right, and you say, well, the clock is, let's see, what is it? Now I can't remember how it goes. It's like, oh, your face could stop a clock, or when I see you, time stands still. You know, there's a different way of putting it. It's not necessary. It's not really BS, but it's just a nicer way of putting things. And I don't think it's political correctness. I think it is common courtesy, and treating people with dignity is important. And I think that's what most people want to see. Is they want a legislator who will do the work they want him to do, who will meet with them, which the guy we've got now won't meet with you if you're a Democrat. He won't do town halls. When he goes around and does his meetings, they're invitation only. They are not open to all of his constituents. And I think that when you are elected, you represent everyone. Whether you agree with them or not, you should meet with everyone. Don't have to agree with them. And you can say, I don't agree with that, but I respect your right to believe that way. I think that is a very important part of our democracy. And if we don't have that, I'm not sure what kind of a government we've got.